How has America come to this? In 2024, a former American president recreating the themes of the 1939 Nazi convention at Madison Square Garden, praising authoritarianism, demonizing immigrants, and stoking fear in the masses, all in the pursuit of power. Trump's latest forays into fascist rhetoric should immediately disqualify him as a presidential candidate. His language is not only incendiary but un-American, an affront to the foundations of free speech, liberty, and democracy. All Americans need to fully embrace the danger of his words. First things first, praising Hitler in any form is never a sound idea. According to Donald Trump's longest-serving chief of staff, General John Kelly, Trump sang the praises of certain attributes that Hitler displayed.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it would be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
So what would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did, you could argue, was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason. But he would occasionally say that.
The latest praise for the Third Reich that's become public is Trump's admiration for Hitler's generals. According to The Atlantic, these are the words of the disgraced president. "I need the kind of generals that Hitler had, people who are totally loyal to him, that follow orders," Trump said in a private conversation in the White House. Incorrectly believing in the fervent loyalty that the Nazi generals had for the regime. Trump is not only fascistic in his desire, but stupidly ignorant. Hitler's supposedly loyal generals tried to kill their leader 5 times in 2 years. So not only were they not loyal, but very incompetent. Do you remember when Nazis were bad? Apparently, Trump does not. In recent speeches, Trump has gone so far as to echo the words of Hitler, describing immigrants in the following manner.
It's crazy what's going on. They're ruining our country. And it's true. They're destroying the blood of our country. That's what they're doing. They're destroying our country. They don't like it when I said that. And I never read Mein Kampf. They said, oh, Hitler said that in a much different way. No, they're coming from all over the world, people all over the world. We have no idea. They could be healthy. They could be very unhealthy. They could bring in disease that's going to catch on in our country.
Furthermore, Trump has dehumanized immigrants crossing the border, referring to them as animals.
The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals. Nancy Pelosi told me that. She said, please don't use the word animal, sir, when you're talking about these people. I said, I'll use the word animal because that's what they are.
More recently, Trump has focused on the enemy from within, fellow Americans who have opposed him.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
In his recent increase in authoritarian language, the twice-impeached criminal ex-president has threatened the targeting of political enemies and critics with the reach of the Department of Justice. Of course, no discussion of Trump's fascism would be complete without mentioning January 6, 2021, the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Thousands of rabid Trump supporters infiltrated the halls of Congress. Searching for political targets, they attacked policemen, desecrated the Capitol building, and terrorized the members of Congress. Trump described that day of violence like this.
And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns, but we didn't have guns. And when I say we, these are people that walked down. This was a tiny percentage of the overall, which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands. It could have been the largest group I've ever spoken before.
This continuing inflammatory rhetoric begs the question, will there be another escalation of words to violence?
If you had one really violent day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge, Congressman Kelly, put him in charge for one day. Mike, would you say, he's right here, he's a great congressman. Would you say, Mike, that if you were in charge, you would say, oh, please, don't touch them, let them rob your store. All these stores go out of business, right? They don't pay rent, then the city doesn't have money. It's a chain of events that's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately. You know, it'll end immediately.
During the George Floyd protests, Trump had a disturbing response.
And again, especially around that George Floyd area where Trump has been cited as saying, why can't you just go shoot them? Shoot them in the legs, is what he said to Mark Esper, the former Secretary of Defense.
If Jan 6th was a practice run, what could we expect next? Throughout his political life, Trump has consistently praised dictators. About Putin,
Yesterday, reporters asked me if I thought President Putin was smart. I said, of course he's smart, to which I was greeted with, oh, that's such a terrible thing to say. The problem is not that Putin is smart. The real problem is that our leaders are dumb.
beyond Trump, his acolytes have stepped up the fascist rhetoric. MAGA super orc Stephen Miller speaking at the recent MSG Retro Nazi convention.
America is for Americans and Americans only.
Discount Joseph Goebbels, aka Tucker Carlson, on the greatness of the leader.
And the second reason that people love Trump, and I put myself in this category, it's why I'm here today, is because he's liberated us in the deepest and truest sense. And the liberation he has brought to us is the liberation from the obligation to tell lies. Donald Trump has made it possible for the rest of us to tell the truth about the world around us. And that's the single most liberating thing you can do for people. If you want to enslave people, if you want to degrade them, force them to tell lies. And they have. They forced us to lie about everything at gunpoint, effectively. They put people in prison for refusing to lie. And not just the obvious lies that men can become women or Vladimir Putin blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. No, honestly, he did. January 6th was an insurrection. They were unarmed, but it was very insurrection-y.
What we are witnessing today is an evolution of the fascism of past eras. The Trumpist MAGA movement has twisted old-school fascism into its own distinct form, a cult-like force that feeds on the rage of a grievance-filled segment of the population, but still relying on the classic fears of diminishing status, immigrant threats, and loss of cultural traditions. Trump has spawned his own distinct fascist animal. In the words of General Kelly,
but certainly the former president is in the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
If he was left to his own devices, would he be a dictator if he didn't have people around him?
Oh, I think he'd love to be.